I think we ran through everything we wanted to talk about. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Rec?
Let's see. I guess I would want to talk a little bit about our upcoming trade school class, because I think that connects to a lot of the things we've talked about. So the first rendezvous was in March 2020, literally the day before everything shut down. One of the things that was talked about a lot there was education, and how, like, MadWorc's president has, I don't remember if it's a coworker or a friend, but knows somebody who went through the business school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And apparently in like the stacks and stacks and stacks of books, the word co-op, or like the concept of co-ops, comes up like once or twice in the context of housing co-ops. So we were talking a lot about education and like the lack of education about cooperatives. Like, if business students aren't learning about cooperatives, then like, how are we expecting people who aren't in business realm to learn about cooperatives? And we talked about some of the like existing education, some of the gaps in education, and people felt like, and this is a group of folks mostly from Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And the sort of gap that people identified that seemed sort of like the most logical place to start was trade schools, because people in trade schools are learning a trade. They're going to be going into a particular industry, often working for somebody else. And that creates a really good opportunity to actually start your own business as a cooperative. And you have a topic to start with, right? It's not like, if you start with like 4-year undergrad, they're like, I don't know what my business would be. Like, what do I know how to do? Like, whereas with like trade school students, they're like, oh yes, I am learning how to be an electrician. I could open a co-op that does electrician. So we have been working on a curriculum. We got funding from the Cooperative Development Foundation. And as part of that funding, once it's fully completed and once we've taught it and revised it and like it's really done, it will be publicly available to anyone who wants to use it. But we're basically doing a pilot this fall that we work with our local trade school. It's very hard to get a class added into the trade school that's for credit. And part of the like stipulations were like they would own the curriculum. We're like, okay, but if you knew how to do a curriculum about cooperatives, you'd already be doing it. So like, I think we have more subject matter experience than you do. So we're running it through the professional and continuing education program, which is not for credit, but is open to everyone in the city, which is great because we're also hoping that it might be an opportunity for people who are interested in converting their existing businesses to co-ops to take it, as well as for trade school students to take it. Plus, there's a lot of people who have gone to those Co-op 101s that the Madison Cooperative Development Coalition has done who might be interested in more hands-on support. So it's a very hands-on class. And we'll take people basically through like, why would you start a co-op, including just some of the like economic realities of our world, right? Like, here's what income inequality looks like, and here's why that's a problem. But then also walk people through like democratic decision-making and bylaws and finances and funding and business planning. And so basically people will leave the class with like, they'll leave with bylaws, they'll leave with a decision-making process, they'll leave with a list of questions that they want to ask a lawyer if they decide to go that route. Not all co-ops will have legal questions, but some will. And they'll leave with a business plan. So they'll basically be working in small groups to create those things. And we're hoping that people in the same industry will take the class together and actually form co-ops out of it. And I think that's another opportunity that I think could connect to co-ops for folks who are incarcerated, because I know there are some states where people who are incarcerated can take classes at like outside colleges. And so I think that's a potential connection there, is like, if a trade school is offering a class like that, that might be a really strong opportunity for business development skills for someone who is able to take classes. I know that's not true everywhere, but I think that's a big opportunity. And I think it's also just a really exciting project because we haven't had anything like that in Madison that really like walks people step by step through creating a cooperative. And like we did a lot of research into what other classes exist, and there's a lot of like classes that are sort of like survey of cooperatives, but not like here's how you start a cooperative. So that's a big project that we are hoping is happening this fall. We're currently waiting for registration to pick up. We're going to do it one way or another. We're just hoping that it'll be through the trade school and not on our own.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's definitely needed in the Illinois state prisons. I don't think something like that exists yet. So if anybody's doing that in Illinois, let us know. I'd be interested in supporting making that happen, because they really need that in the prisons. Like just the idea of more just more cooperation and stuff, because it's very hyper individualistic. But the prisons also foster that mentality of pitting people against each other. And, you know, if you weren't hyper individualistic before you went into prison, well, the prison likely fostered that in you. And that just, you know, makes our societies worse. That's exciting. And yeah, I do want to see that sort of like open sourced, or I don't know a better term.
Chris and I have both worked also in workforce development, where we've I think both kind of tried to shoehorn in some cooperative principles and exposure. So having a ready-made curriculum would be just a huge boon to just facilitate that. You know, someone who believes in it and doesn't really know the nuts and bolts of how would be super valuable.
Yeah. Well, and to respond to what Chris was saying about like the hyper individualism, I think that's probably a big part of why wardens don't want people starting their own businesses, because it's empowering to people. And if they started cooperative businesses, like goodness knows, like that would destroy a lot of the hierarchy that exists. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of entrenched like dependence on that power structure. But yeah, once the curriculum is ready, I will definitely keep you both posted, and we'll happily talk to people about like how to implement it, what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, that power control. I don't know if we'll put this in the video, but I was talking to someone yesterday about we're trying to understand some tensions that are going on in Logan Prison. This is in Illinois. One of the things that we do in prisoner support is we're always trying to make sense of people's experiences to figure out next moves, and you know, what is the prison doing, what are the wardens doing, what's on their mind, the correctional officers and stuff. And so we're trying to, there's one of the persons we're writing who was asking us for help. They're saying basically that there's a hierarchy in there, and that's pitting people against each other. And some folks are saying like, nah, that doesn't make sense. I was like, no, these hierarchies do make sense. And I was explaining something that I was recently reading about, and that said like in the 1920s or so, maybe a little bit before, there's a Fort Leavenworth prison in Kansas, which is a place that a lot of political prisoners were sent. There's this moment where there were workers of the Industrial Workers of the World, unionists, but the Industrial Workers of the World, they're confined there. And then there was a Black insurrectionist. They were confined there. And then there was a Mexican revolutionaries. They were confined there. And then somehow the national legislators of the U.S. government found out that there wasn't segregation going on, and they were like really upset. They're like, "What? You have people just like getting along with each other of different races? Like, what are you doing over there?" And so they made sure to change the system, so that basically all the people from different racial backgrounds are pitted against each other. So yeah, I mean, the different ways in which we get pitted against each other, and it's a lot of times not accidental, it's engineered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's super critical, like that it's not a natural system at all. Like it is very intentional, and the people in power are very aware of it. Like it's not like somebody was just like, oh, what happens if we do? No, it's like we're gonna put people in positions that make them fight each other so that they don't fight us. Like which means that people do have a lot of power, right? Like the people in charge would not be so scared if there wasn't a lot of power potential in people getting along and working together.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about, like, it would be cool to make a play out of that, like, piece of history, but one in which we win.
Yeah, I just read the book Cast, and in it she talks about I think it might have been World War I, that Black American soldiers in Europe were like getting along with their European allies, and their European allies were like, you know, praising them when they did heroic things, and, you know, just like treating them as people. And American, like I don't know what the titles were, but like American like generals or like higher up people basically talked to their counterparts in the other European groups and were like, your men need to stop being friendly with our African American soldiers. Like it's ruining morale among our troops to see Black people being treated as like real people and being praised and like being put in leadership positions. So yeah, it's really conscious. Like it's not just like just happens that way. It's like people actually are putting this into effect and saying like, we need to make these divisions and maintain these divisions, otherwise our system of racism doesn't work. So anything we can do to fight that is huge.
Yeah, and in case anyone's interested, these Black insurrectionists that I referred to, they're connected to it was the all-Black 24th Infantry Regiment of the United States Army, and this is connected to the Houston riot of 1917. Basically, they got fed up of racism. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, Rick? That was the trade school information. I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, partially it's just like very on my mind because our enrollment deadline is in 2 days and the class starts in 9 days. And so like, it's like all I'm thinking about right now is like, how many flip charts do I need? Like, how many sticky notes?
Are you teaching?
I am not teaching. Charity, who's one of our board members and who's the staff person for the Madison Cooperative Development Coalition, is teaching. But I'm doing all of the administrative support and a lot of the curriculum development. So right now, like I've done a lot of curriculum development and now we're sort of working together to make it something that she can teach.
Cool.
Yeah. And we're really trying to use like as much popular education as possible. Like, like our first meeting, she was like, do I need a PowerPoint for this? And I was like, oh, please no. Like, let's like, maybe some of the like reading financial statement stuff will require a PowerPoint, you know, just to be like, everyone look at this one thing and we're going to like point out things, but like, no, we're going to be as interactive as possible. Like, because people are going to learn from each other too. Like,
yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying about how it's actually difficult to have hybrid experiences that aren't totally like, I don't know, like centralizing in the voice and like propping up some kind of hierarchy. Yeah, it just always takes like a little more work to like remind ourselves and like fight the infrastructures that just assume there's going to be one voice in the room. So yeah, good on you.
I mean, it's kind of important too, if we want people to be forming co-ops, like they need to be learning from each other too, because like we're not going to be there all the time to like give them information as they come up against struggles. Like, I mean, that's why like we're spending like a whole like week and a half on democratic decision making, because it's something people are just not familiar with. Like, but
I would like to tune in for
so
that.
critical.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to succeed as a co-op if you can't make decisions.
Yeah, it's astounding the extent to which like basic empowering ideas have been like eliminated from our communities and humanity in general, to the point where Mike Strode, you should probably know, calling that collaborative and very involved in the solidarity economy. We were having a reflection. He was thinking like, you know what? Just introducing the idea to our neighbors that you could have control in the organization that you're in, just introducing that idea is a really important achievement. For people just think about that, like, hey, how could that could exist in my community? And it's as sad as a reflection as it is kind of I guess a little hopeful, because people are like running with it, the idea, like that's just turning on that light for people, you know, because in Chicago, as much as like it seems like, because there's worker unions and a lot of active involvement, as much as it seems that there would be a lot of like self-management and democracy in our communities, there really isn't, in my opinion. There's that rhetoric, there's a whole industry of that rhetoric, but at the grassroots, we don't experience that much democracy or meaningful participation in things that impact us.
Yeah, I mean, even like coming up with like what the first week is going to be for this class has been really interesting. Of like, you know, Madison's worker co-ops are historically a lot whiter than the sort of like national norm, and a lot more male, but definitely a lot whiter. Some of which is about Madison's demographics traditionally. And a lot of the newer co-ops are less white. But you know, we have sort of this like multi-generational set of co-ops. And also we have like a very hippie white food co-op that people know. And so even just trying to come up with like, how do we explain to people why co-ops are relevant to them, when like maybe their only experience of a co-op is like the overpriced hippie grocery store. And so we were trying to come up with like a list of just like, we like didn't want to bring up the phrase solidarity economy in the first class. We're like, that's like a little too far. Like, how do we like get people there a little more slowly? But we came up with a list of just like things people do that are like part of solidarity economics. So like one of the examples was just like potlucks, like libraries, you know, just like things that people do that really are about community building and everyone contributing and everyone participating, but that we don't usually talk about as part of this stuff. Like we're usually like very focused on like bigger things. So yeah, it's been interesting trying to come up with like, how do we in 1 week convince people that this is in fact relevant to what they already know and already do.